Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast. I am your host, Dylan Lasagna, and this is episode number 298 of this icy yet spicy podcast that brings you all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports for you casual sports fans out there like you and me. And in this episode, we're here to once again round out the week that was in the 2025 NFL season. And this week was the one, week number 8 of the 2025 campaign. And I'll give you my full thoughts on this past week and the slate from this past one. And honestly, I gotta say, from the get-go, I'm not gonna give you like the full shebang. Just to sum it up in one word, meh. It was pretty meh this week. So yeah, I get it. We're still in the like I said last week, it's the time of the NFL season where things are not really all that exciting right now, and not to expect a whole lot. And it's not just because there's a bunch of teams on vacation. It's just not really a lot to look at right now. And yes, I jump on here with these very lengthy episodes, but you get the idea. It's just not an exciting time right now. And teams are still trying to figure things out as they try to make a push for the playoffs or make a push for Cancun. But we're still here to talk about each week and what I can at least take away from every single team and every single game. And hell, we're going to keep pushing on and pushing forward. And this week is no different. So before we get started on today's episode, make sure, if you're not already, what are you waiting for? Follow the show on Very Cold Lasagna on social media at Very Cold Lasagna, whether it's on X or Instagram. And if you're listening to this on audio, make sure you rate and review the show, whether it's on Apple or Spotify. And if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, make sure, if you're not already, what the heck are you waiting for? Smash the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you'll be notified of each and every episode, upload, you name it. That happens to be Very Cold Lasagna. And tap the like button as well so it comes across and spreads across the YouTube algorithm. And leave a comment down below with your opinions, your takes on the topic at hand, that being week number 8 across the NFL, and what you have to say about your team, a particular event, or how your team did or didn't do this past week. And if your team was on a bye, what you're looking forward to when they get off the bye. So that being said, let's talk about this past week in the NFL. And before we get into the slate, there were a bunch of teams that were taking their vacation this week. Those teams were the Cardinals, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Rams, and the Seahawks. So that's like the most of the bunch of the teams that were taking their vacation this week, and they'll be coming back next week. So yeah, that's pretty much the most teams that are going to be on vacation for 1 week, and not many more after that. So now we get into the slate of games from this past week, starting with Thursday Night Football. Only for that Jeff Bezos money, for however much money, pal, as the LA Chargers took on the Minnesota Vikings, and the Chargers came away with the victory by washing away the clippering loss. Yeah, the clippering disease of that Colts loss by bullying the Vikings into submission, thanks to 3 touchdowns from Justin Herbert, 37-10. I gotta say, with this Minnesota Vikings team, they just look so broken, both physically and emotionally, especially on offense. Like this makeshift offensive line that has been brutalized with injuries. I get it, it's one thing, but when it's just been so makeshift, it doesn't help the quarterback, especially Carson Wentz, who we all love to rag about, oh, he's not good anymore, he's so washed, but the man's been getting brutalized. He's been set up to fail by Kevin O'Connell. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. He's been getting brutalized. He's failed to get any sort of that offensive line's been failed to get any sort of run game going. And Carson Wentz, he's staved off brutality for as much as he could. And yes, he's made one too many mistakes. Even when he had some time to throw, the frustration, it was just starting to get frustrating for everyone involved. Whether it was receivers, Carson Wentz himself, the defense. This team, again, is physically and mentally and emotionally broken. But, looking at from Carson Wentz's perspective and, just looking at his body language and then how, cameras were panning towards him towards the end of the game, it started to become understandable why he was like that, because we later learned that Carson Wentz was going to undergo season-ending surgeries on shoulder injuries. Yes, I said on injuries that he needed on. So, yikes on how Kevin O'Connell handled that again. So, while the mini bye should serve more time to help them regroup in all facets, and hopefully get JJ McCarthy back into the lineup, it should be pause for cause, or the other way around, cause for pause on what Kevin O'Connell did to Carson Wentz, putting him on season-ending injury reserve and then just sending him out to the wolves when he was already so beaten up. I'll give Carson Wentz that. Tried to pull it out as much as he could. Again, no, I don't understand why Kevin O'Connell had to do that. I mean, there was Phillip Rivers trying to play through an ACL in the AFC Championship game, but this is kind of a different case when you had another healthy quarterback in Max Brosmer. But still, this, if JJ McCarthy nor the Vikings do at least decent the rest of the way, I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin O'Connell gets fired for what he did to Carson Wentz. Meanwhile, for the LA Chargers, this is relatively easy work for them in this game, so I don't really have anything to take away from them other than, they finally got the running game working. And sure, they don't have Najee Harris anymore. They don't have Amari Hampton for the time being, but they do have a guy by the name of Kimani Vidal. This guy is a 2024 6th-round pick. He was the starting running back for this game, and he was also last week. And the Chargers were banking on him, trying to spark the run game. And his first start was this very successful one. Actually, this is his second start in 5 days. So he was very successful in this one. He managed to shake off many Vikings defenders a variety of times, and he got a touchdown in eclipsed over 100 yards. And he also, more importantly, was a very good blocker for Justin Herbert. So this is very good work for Vidal in this start. And should he continue to replicate this success, he could be a decent complement behind Omari Hampton when he comes back. So going to the early morning Sunday slate, we had the Miami Dolphins taking on the Atlanta Falcons. And this was a little bit of a surprising result because behind Tua Tagovailoa's 4 touchdowns. Yes, I said that right. 4 quattro touchdowns. The Dolphins suddenly had their best showing of the year in a complete torturing of the Falcons, 34-10. Yeah, no, I guess that was a blowout that most people didn't expect. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins, just out of the blue, they decided to have their most efficient performance of the year and destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. So after they had a very bad showing last week, the Dolphins offense, they fired on all cylinders with the bounce run game and an efficient receiving day from Jalen Waddle, completely dismantled the Falcons defense. And meanwhile, on the other side, their usually bad defense of their own, they had a good day too in quieting Bijan Robinson and forcing backup turned starter Kirk Cousins to throw with very limited success. Now, granted, this was against a Falcons team that had to start Kirk Cousins. But hey, Miami throughout the season, they have been competitive, although with only one win to show for it so far. Other than the skid marks game, but this past Sunday they finally showed something for it. So for the meantime, it very slightly cooled down Mike McDaniel's seat. So I'll give them that. For the Atlanta Falcons, they really got to have to get back on track very fast because I get the injuries we're piling up with not with Michael Penix Jr. not playing this game, Drake London not playing this game, but two pretty bad back-to-back performances. First on Sunday night against San Francisco, and now after that, you have this complete blunder at home with Kirk Cousins starting this game and looking like a hot mess against a below-average Dolphins defense, and they failed to get into the end zone until garbage time. And yeah, the whole offense as a whole, they just looked very inefficient. Bijan also had his issues himself because he struggled to find open running lanes, and he fumbled the ball in scoring range. So yeah, this team has to hope Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London will be back next week so the offense can get back on track. There's no room for error for the Falcons because, well, they have their very early bye week, and if they want to compete for a playoff spot, yeah, they can't have games like this anymore. Meanwhile, down in Baltimore, they had the Ravens take on the Chicago Bears, and yeah, this was a get-right game for the Ravens coming off their bye week, as an interception from Nate Wiggins paved way for Tyler Huntley's go-ahead touchdown to Charlie Kolar, and for the Ravens to pull away from the Bears 30-16. For the Bears, they're riding the wave of momentum of I think it was a 4-game winning streak, but unfortunately, they fell flat in this one, especially Caleb Williams. Caleb, he had every chance to dismantle what was going into this game, a very crappy defense from the Baltimore Ravens, and what was also a prove-it game for Caleb Williams. Especially, when that same defense, this same defense, was suddenly shutting down his running game, forcing Caleb Williams to throw much more. But when the game was on the line many, many times, he was just too 50-50. He was just too inconsistent when Ben Johnson needed him to be near perfect. He just had too many drives, especially their first two, where they went on really long drives. They stalled out. They only notched 2 field goals, and then he made 2 critical errors in 2 intentional grounding calls, and then obviously the really bad interception to Wiggins. So yeah, again, no room for error for the Bears now. Caleb Williams has to be better, has to be more consistent, can't make a lot of mistakes if the Bears want to have any chance in competing in the North, let alone trying to get a playoff spot. Meanwhile, for the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he didn't play in this game, even though he fully practiced in the lead up to it. I guess it's just John Harbaugh, given that they have a game upcoming this week on a 5-day period on Thursday night. So they probably wanted to wait to have Lamar Jackson start then. So it was on Tyler Huntley to take on the Bears. And Tyler Huntley, he wasn't perfect in this one, but he kept the offense stable. And he was, I'd say, solid in this one with on-time throws, used his mobility to extend what ended up being 6 straight scoring drives in this one, which makes you wonder, why did they waste time with Cooper Rush starting the 2 games before the bye week? Why? Why even, why didn't you just go activate Tyler Huntley from the active roster? Why didn't you just go and get him and elevate him, let him play for those 2 games in the first place? Sure, I mean, who know what the result would have been? Maybe you could have won those 2 games, or maybe just even split them. Would have been you could have been looking at Ravens team that would have been at least 3-5, 3 and whatever right now. But it's not all that bad, at least for right now for the Ravens. They're still they're 2-5, whatever they are right now. But more importantly, the defense also finally played at its best, limiting the Bears to just 1 touchdown and kept them stalled when they needed a touchdown with multiple field goals, and obviously the interception, as I said multiple times, by Wiggins. So both sides played good coming out of the bye week, and now they got to replicate that in Miami on Thursday night. So then we had the Buffalo Bills returning from their own bye week to take on the Carolina Panthers. And they looked refreshed. And after losing 2 straight before their bye week, they took out their frustrations after those 2 losses on the Carolina Panthers by dropping a 40 bomb in a balanced team effort 40-9. So not much to take away from this game because, the Bills, they were just pretty much pounding it on. They kept pounding as the Panthers catchphrase goes. James Cook was the main focus for this game, destroying the Panthers defense effortlessly and sometimes single-handedly for a 2 touchdown day. I mean, Josh Allen was active in this one, but he didn't really need to do all that much except steal a few touchdowns from James Cook with the quarterback sneak at the goal line. Meanwhile, the defense silenced Rico Dowdle for the most part and forced backup turn starter Andy Dalton into 3 interceptions to completely blow the door open in their favor. Now, granted, this win was against a Panthers team that didn't have their starting quarterback, but if they can carry this momentum, they could carry this win, try to translate that against a actual winning team, then maybe it'll be a different conversation and get the Bills right onto the actual track, especially when they re-welcome back into town Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs next week. Meanwhile, for the Carolina Panthers, they did all they could in the first half to try to make something out of this game. Try to make it a closer game than expected, but it all went downhill because of the offense. Led by Andy Dalton in place of Bryce Young. Dalton considerably slowed down the offense with 3 turnovers and a bad sack that cost them a field goal before halftime. So, Carolina did not play great in this game. I mean, at least offensively. So they have to at least be looking a little bit better at the halfway mark, minus this game. But they need Bryce Young back soon if they want to look, I guess, a little bit better by the end of this season. Then we had the New York Jets taking on the Cincinnati Bengals in what ended up being probably one of the only interesting things out of this week. As Breece Hall's big running day, he capped it off with a very late trick play to Mason Taylor that also capped off a 14-point fourth quarter comeback for, say it with me, Jets, Jets. And it finally earned them their first win. Yeah, they didn't Jets, pal. They made the Bengals bungle as the Jets got their first win of the year, finally, 39-38. So, the theme of the Jets this year was mistakes, very bad quarterback play, crap coaching, and, Aaron Glenn being a meme. So that all went out the window Sunday with the opposite of that. Justin Fields playing a mistake-free, turnover-free game, helping the Jets mitigate their defensive issues, with again, the things I just said, with 2 game-winning drives capped off by Breece Hall's trick play. Aaron Glenn was also coached his butt off in this one, having his offense coordinator Tanner Engstrand place emphasis on Breece Hall and being aggressive by going for 2-point conversions at least twice in this one. So, I mean, good for the Jets. They finally get their first win under Aaron Glenn. Now, will the Jets win another game? I don't know. I don't know how more disciplined they'll be too, but they can at least say they won't be the first team in NFL history to go 0-18. So the 2008 Detroit Lions and the 2017 Skid Marks can, they can lay easy for now. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, really, they really had to do this. Like they really had to Bengal like this. I mean, I'm not gonna say entirely that this was the offense's fault, because they did everything to prevent this Jets team from making a comeback, especially in the fourth quarter. They like every time the Jets were scoring, the Bengals were answering right back. But a lot of this falls on their defense. The defense repeatedly failed from letting the Jets score, because throughout this game, the Jets were scoring 3 straight touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And with less than 2 minutes to go, the Jets had the 39-38 lead that they never let go. Again, Flacco on the offense once again tried to get into field goal range. Obviously, they failed. But once again, they shouldn't have been in that position to begin with in the first place. And yeah, the defense just couldn't hold its end of the stick. And this loss that that they shouldn't have had in the first place, it did some damage, if not a lot of damage, to what I thought last week was gonna be for them, and some life into the potential chances in the, not just a playoff spot, maybe even in the AFC North. Meanwhile, down in Houston, you had the Texans taking on my San Francisco 49ers. CJ Stroud and his scrub receiving core hammered the 49er defense, surprisingly, with Kamari Lassiter slamming the door shut of a late 49er comeback, 26-15. I mentioned this in my 49er weekly roundup that posted in the previous episode, that the Niners have to make some trades, whether it's trades for people or trading away people before the trade deadline. So they accomplished one of those things, and I'll get to that in a bit, because this game against Houston, this game against Houston exposed the lack of the complete lack of a pass rush. There's no Nick Bosa, no Yuta Gross-Matos, no Bryce Huff, probably another name that I'm missing. And CJ Stroud had all day to throw, even with his terrible offensive line out there. And it exposed the lack of a pass rush and their charming ultra soft secondary. Yes, they're young, but they're still a charming ultra soft secondary, even with Diamador Lenore out there. And they did at least make a trade. It's like this, like last year or 2023 second round pick pass rusher. So I'm not sure what his name is, but all I know is that we gave up a 6th round pick for last year and got a 7th round pick in return, and the edge rusher from New England. But so they added a depth piece, okay, but they got to make a bigger. They got to get a bigger edge rushing piece soon, or maybe even another piece, whatever. So the Niners have to do more than just getting a depth piece at edge. So they got to make more moves. Meanwhile, for the Houston Texans, well, congratulations for beating up on non-existent 49ers defense. But next week, CJ Stroud will have to prove that this win was no fluke against an actual defense in the Denver Broncos in what could be a defensive battle between both teams. Meanwhile, down in New England, the Patriots took on the Cleveland Browns as Drake May overcame a rough first half and 5 sacks from Myles Garrett to throw 3 unanswered touchdowns that put the skid marks in their place, 32-10. And yeah, Myles Garrett, he had himself a very good game. They had been the highlight for the Browns in a very usual season for the skid marks. And it surprisingly kept them in it against a hot Patriots team. But yeah, once it got out of hand, he threw a bitch fit. He threw his helmet into the ground, was getting all pissed and mad, sitting away from his teammates, like way away from his teammates on the bench like a baby. And all I could think to myself when I saw that clip is like, well, this is what Myles Garrett deserves. This is what he deserves to get. Like like when he signed that big fat extension in the offseason, instead of, when he didn't follow through with his trade request, well, that's what he gets. Meanwhile, for Drake May and the Patriots, I mean, it's no surprise that they beat the skid marks. Even though it took a little bit of a very slow start, but Josh McDaniels helped out his quarterback, leaned towards more of the play action, and they were back to their normal selves. Drake May, being back to a pretty efficient quarterback that he has been so far, had another excellent day. And yeah, the defense tightened up on the skid marks offense. And they once again sent out a message to the Bills in this one. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, the Eagles took on the New York Giants in a rematch of their previous meeting from 2 weeks ago, as Jalen Hurts had a 4-touchdown field day on the Giants to have the Eagles exact revenge on their division rival, 38-20. But yeah, for the Giants, yeah, they lost this game convincingly, but it's probably what happened during this game is what's gonna feel a lot worse. Because they lost Cam Skattebo. Sorry, I keep fucking that name up. They lost Cam Skattebo, their top and very fun to watch running back. Cam Skattebo was one of the very few positives aside from Jackson Dart and their front four and Malik Neighbors this season for New York. But he now joins Malik Neighbors to have gone down for the year, and it's another major hit for Jackson Dart in his development, which will now have even more issues scoring now. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Eagles, they have their own injury issues. Even though the team took care of the Giants with ease, and they had a good performance on their front four. But again, going back to the injury issues, yeah, they have to monitor Saquon Barkley now. Because he suffered a groin injury late in the game. And yeah, while it could be a non-story if he's healthy by their game against the Packers in 2 weeks, it's just something to keep an eye on because Saquon Barkley, he's been up and down this season, but it's just pause for cause, if you know what I mean. So something to keep an eye on if you're a Philly fan, especially if he has to miss time. Meanwhile, in the afternoon slate of games, we have the Tampa Bay Bucks heading to the Big Hard to take on the New Orleans Saints. The Bucks forced 4 turnovers, including a pick 6 from Anthony Nelson, to put down the Saints 23-3. For the Tampa Bay Bucks, very quiet game from Baker Mayfield, but they didn't need him to do much in this one, as the team now gets a much-needed bye week. So it's pretty much like last week for Baker Mayfield. Yeah, the defense was all over him. Baker Mayfield was pretty much struggling with the remaining pieces of his offense. Maybe perhaps the injuries around him are starting to catch up. Even though I mentioned that the mantra of this team so far has been make the most of what you have. But I guess that mantra is starting to crumble around Baker Mayfield. But nonetheless, again, he didn't have to do all that much because his defense was doing all the damage on that terrible Saints offense. And like I said, good news for the Bucks is that they have their bye week now, and they hope to have some of the key pieces on offense back once they return to action. Meanwhile, for the New Orleans Saints, they continue to not do so great. Spencer Rattler, he once again turned the ball over a lot in this one, including a pick 6. To Anthony Nelson, and that ended up being the what's the word that ended up being the turning point. That ended up being the signal for him to have Kellen Moore say enough is enough. I have to change it up and give rookie Tyler Show a shot at the starting spot in the second half. So he went on to bench Spencer Rattler. But honestly, in my opinion, Tyler Show did no better because he also threw an interception, and the offense never got jump started. It never moved, and they never really did anything to try to get into this game at all. So the Saints are 1-7. They're not going anywhere clearly, but you will see Tyler Show start in the next game in LA against the Rams. So to see if he could try to provide anything like in the next game or two. But yeah, it's pretty clear that Kellen Moore is going to have there's probably no solution on this roster. Spencer Rattler had his chances, but he failed. He failed, especially with the turnovers. And he's probably sending a message to, like, whether it's Spencer Rattler or Tyler Show. You got to cut down on the turnovers or you're getting benched, potentially permanently. Meanwhile, in the Mile High, you had the Denver Broncos taking on the Dallas Cowboys as Bo Nix threw a pair of touchdowns to both RJ Harvey and Troy Franklin to blow the door open and blow out the Cowboys 44-24. Another game that ended in a complete blowout. And for the Cowboys, as have been evident all season, I could talk about how much their defense sucks. But what was more evident was that an offense that has been doing well all season and has been trying to hide their terrible defense. It also got stuck in neutral. It also ran into a brick wall in the form of Denver's defense. Dak Prescott threw 2 bad interceptions in this one, and the offense was just stuck in the mud. That could never figure out the problem with Denver's overwhelming defense. So, yeah, like the Cowboys' offense just was stuck in neutral, and maybe that's the reason why they've lost to the Broncos for how many years straight now. Meanwhile, for the Denver Broncos, I gotta give it to them. Like, going through all 4 quarters after Bo Nix kicked off the day with an interception, he quickly rebounded with a very efficient performance that saw him lead 4 touchdown drives throughout this blowout win. 2 of which went to Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant and RJ Harvey. The defense, the defense really contained Dak Prescott in the offense, not 2 interceptions. And yeah, they didn't have to do all that much in the 4th quarter anyways. So maybe last week's game against the Giants, that 4th quarter comeback, it really did be the spark that this offense needed. And yeah, by the 4th quarter, Bo Nix didn't even need to play because the score was just that high for Denver. So yeah, they finally played a complete game. So Denver's offense will face a bigger task next week against the other Texas team, that being Houston, and their top 5 defense. But for this week, pretty good stuff. Then in Indianapolis, you had the Colts taking on their division rival, the Tennessee Titans, in a rematch from week 3. And it's pretty much the same story from that game. Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones this time around teamed up for a 3-touchdown hat trick to once again bury their division rivals 38-14. For the Tennessee Titans, not much else to say about them at this point. But with the trade deadline coming up, though, it's just time to sell. It's time to sell whatever contributors like that aren't going to be a part of this never-ending rebuild. That's pretty much what I'll put it best at. I mean, they're at least starting. They traded away corner Roger McCreary to the LA Rams, so that's a start. And who knows what they'll continue to sell before the trade deadline. So they're getting a head start at trading away, pieces that aren't going to be a part of the never-ending rebuild and getting picks. Meanwhile, for the Indianapolis Colts, this was a game where they continued to steamroll more opponents. And what are they now? 6-1? No, 7-1 now. But they got another big test awaiting next week on the road in Pittsburgh before they have to fly out overseas. So, yeah, they have another tall task ahead in the Pittsburgh Steelers, who possess a good team but is looking to rebound, as we'll talk about them next. And the Sunday Night Football game, we had the Green Bay Packers taking on said Pittsburgh Steelers. As Jordan Love and Tucker Kraft took over in the 3rd quarter with 3 touchdowns to deny their old friend Aaron Rodgers victory over his old team, 35-25. And yeah, a game that ended up becoming a runaway win for the Pack. And yeah, Jordan Love probably played his best game. Well, no, the whole team played their best game since week 2. After going silent in the 2nd quarter, Jordan Love and the offense cooked all the way to the very end with 3 straight touchdown drives that had the Pack take a 28-16 lead in the blink of an eye. Like, it was just like, I was like, all the way over here. Like, I was like somewhere in a different room, and then all of a sudden, what happened? What the heck happened to this game? And that was pretty much like the majority of these games this past week. So yeah, this is the Packers that the fans really need to see since week 2, since the bye week. And yeah, they got it, and they have to keep it up. They have to keep it up in order to maintain their very small lead in the NFC North against Detroit, and maybe even the Bears if they manage to catch up. So yeah, this division is competitive, and the Packers, they have to start playing again competitive like they did on Sunday night. Meanwhile, for the Steelers, the signs that showed of this defense cracking and it started to show in a sudden upset to the Cincinnati Bengals last week on Thursday night. But this Steelers offense, I can honestly say it's cratered back to earth. The one that you saw in the early month of the season where they were just really containing opponents and they were really getting to the quarterback, it's not there. It's not there right now. This supposedly talented pass rush, it didn't even get to Jordan Love once all game. And it was the second half of this game where the defense really let Jordan Love light them up and let them go on a 28-point unanswered tear on them, never to look back. So this once dominant defense, like I said, early in the season, it's fallen back down to earth, and it's allowed opposing offenses to rail on them hard. So they have to fix something fast because we have Indianapolis coming in next week, and who knows what they'll do to them. And maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe the Steelers defense will get it right against the Colts, but it could also be the other way around. But at the same time, when you look at this game, they also let the door just a tad bit open for the Bengals, even though they lost. But it also let the door a tad bit open for the Ravens, who won to catch up in the division now. Meanwhile, in the Monday Night Football game to close out week number 8, a pretty uneventful week number 8, you had the Kansas City Chiefs take on the Washington Commanders, but it kind of wasn't uneventful in this one, at least in the first half. It was a 7-7 stalemate, but it then turned in an uneventful complete rout in favor of the Chiefs, courtesy of 3 straight touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes, as the Chiefs ran away with this one 28-7. And yeah, you're looking at the Commanders right now. Yeah, despite a strong defensive effort and a touchdown from Terry McLaurin, the entire team just disappeared in the second half. Like, where was that effort? I don't know where it went. Part of it was due to injuries in game from Larry Tussle, Javon Kinlaw, and then Terry McLaurin left too with the re-aggravated hamstring injury. And then part of it was the failure to execute from the backup turned starter, Marcus Mariota. And then part of it was Patrick Mahomes figuring out their defense. They wasted a nice first half and a potential chance to upset the Chiefs. And here they are. They stand 3-5 with games coming up against the Seahawks, the Lions, and the Dolphins overseas before their bye week. So, yeah, like with how they're playing right now and all the injuries piling on them, it's just a little disappointing to see what Washington is at right now in what's supposed to be year 2 of their resurgence. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Chiefs, on the opposite side, on the opposite end of the spectrum, it's pretty much a retread of what I said last week. Their offense is back to firing all cylinders. They're pretty much giving the FU to the Super Bowl losers curse, at least for right now. But they're going to have to again show that on the road when they face Josh Allen and the Bills in their annual regular season meeting. So let's see if they can carry over that home success on the road before their bye week. So let's finish off this episode by looking at our winners and losers from this uneventful week number 8, starting with our winners, the Baltimore Ravens, coming off the bye week with the get right game against the Chicago Bears, looking pretty good on both sides of the ball. Finally, the Denver Broncos putting on a rout and finally playing a complete game. Yes, granted it was against the Dallas Cowboys, but you gotta get those wins where you can get them and look impressive in doing so. And then the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love and the Packers scoring 28 or 21. no, 28 unanswered points on the Steelers as Jordan Love outdueled his mentor. And then look at the losers, the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, you had a chance to, get at least catch up to the Steelers after, you upset them on Thursday night. But then, at least defensively, you shit the bed against the New York Jets and let them get their first win of the year. The New York Giants offense, it continued to take a massive dip when they lost Cam Scatterbo for the season. Now they've already lost Malik Neighbors, and all they have left is Jackson Dart, who at least tried to play hard with whoever he has left, but it just wasn't enough. But who knows? Maybe he'll just put lightning in the bottle this Sunday against the 49ers. And then Bears quarterback Caleb Williams just simply couldn't do enough to try to rally the Bears back and give them the win. Now, as we head to a week 9 that hopefully will be a little bit more exciting, but looking at the games going into this upcoming week, it's honestly, man, like I say, every single week in the middle portion of the year, nothing. It's just barely anything other than, well, this one. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. Regular season edition number, whichever. I mean, it's either going to end one way. Patrick Mahomes gets the win, or Josh Allen beats Patrick Mahomes in the regular season for the millionth time. Woohoo! And they meet in the playoffs again, and Patrick Mahomes beats his ass. Yeah. But there is one interesting game, at least, in the early morning portion, and that's the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in what could be a key game that could impact the playoff standings if either team is within the playoff race, which I imagine both teams will probably be by that point. And then the Broncos and Texans in another key AFC matchup of the week. They are going to be facing off in a battle of the NFL's top defenses. So that's another early morning matchup to keep an eye out for. And honestly, I have only 4 headlines this week because week 9 doesn't really look all that appealing in my opinion, but there is one more headline that I'm going to be looking out for, and that's obviously the trade deadline. The trade deadline is the Tuesday after the end of week 9, or the day after Monday Night Football, the closure of week 9. So obviously, who's going to buy, who's going to sell, which teams are going to do either or as the trade deadline nears. Obviously, we had a few teams already that have bought or sold into the trade deadline, like the Rams and the Titans, the Niners and the Patriots doing business. So it's only a matter of time of a actual major move happening, if there is going to be a major move happening before the trade deadline. So we'll see which teams will make that major move, if any. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of our usual NFL week in review, week number 8 of the 2025 NFL campaign. Let me know your thoughts of this past week in the NFL, whether it's on YouTube in the comment section, or if you're listening to this on audio, make sure to slide into the DMs on my socials at Very Cold Lasagna on Twitter or Instagram. And yeah, hopefully week 9 will provide us some more excitement. Hopefully, because week 8 was the least interesting of the week so far. But that's it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I've been your host, Dylan Lasagna. This was episode number 298, and we wrapped the bow with that. And yeah, that's it for this show. And anyways, keep the lasagna very cold in the fridge with your filthy casual takes on the world of sports. And again, send me those takes, whether it's on YouTube or on my socials. And until I see you, when I see you in the next one, peace out.